Okay, and welcome back. Okay, in this second part of our two-part videos on circles, we're going to actually talk now about the actual skill of sketching circles. So we've talked in our first video about how we can identify the formula for a circle, right? What it looks like roughly, okay, and where the actual formula comes from using Pythagoras theorem, okay? In this video, we're going to be doing the skills required to sketch a circle and just in general find out more about points that are happening around our circle. Okay, so just bear with me, okay? In our first example for sketching circles, okay, we are given our example as being x squared plus y squared equals 4. We know it's a circle because we have an x squared and a y squared, so it's not a parabola, it is a circle, okay? That's a common mistake that I see students do, alright? So, first things first, if I give you a circle that looks like this, okay, you should really understand sort of where it is centered on your Cartesian plane, okay? And just like before, okay, remember the equation of a circle with center 0, 0 and radius r is given by this formula, okay? So we know that the coordinates of this circle, for the center of this circle, are 0, 0, okay? Alright, so it's centered on the origin on our Cartesian plane. Now, in terms of the radius, okay, I really want you to understand that the formula that we're given is x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared, okay? Right, so if I'm going to match this formula up here with the 4 and the r squared, we have r squared is equal to 4, okay? Remember, this is our radius squared, okay? All right, to find our actual radius, what we need to do is we need to take the square root of 4, okay? So this is a bit of a heed my words moment. I'll often see students say to me that this is a circle with radius 4. It's not radius 4. We need to take the square root of whatever number is by itself. That is a heed my words moment. Okay, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Okay, you'll see what I'm doing here in black. Alright, so I'll end up with r is equal to the square root of 4. Okay, and the square root of 4 is just 2. Okay, so the radius is 2. That's our answer for this particular question, okay? So I'm just really going to re-highlight what I've just said here, okay? This is a circle with center 0, 0 and radius 2, okay? Because the radius is the square root of whatever number is by itself, okay? So, in our next question, question 3, right? What it's asking us to do is to find the value of y when x equals 1, correct to 1 decimal place. Now, in terms of sketching our circles, this might not necessarily help us as much as what you might think, but it is an important skill to have when we're solving these types of equations, okay? So, I'm just going to take you through how we would go about finding the value of y when x equals 1, okay, in this equation. So I'm just going to bring this equation down here. So, x squared plus y squared is equal to 4, alright? Now in this particular example, it's telling me that x equals 1. So the first step that I do is I say let x equal 1. And we're going to do now the process of substitution. So wherever I see an x now, I'm going to replace it with a 1. Okay, so my new equation will look like this. 1 squared, because that's my x, plus y squared is equal to 4. Okay, now what I'm aiming to do here, which is telling me in the question, is I want to find the value of y, okay? Which means I want to get y by itself. So let's do a little bit of tidying up here, okay? Right, so if I square 1, well, 1 squared is just 1, all right? Okay, so our next step is to have plus y squared is equal to 4 because nothing else has quite changed, okay? Now, I want to get rid of addition first because I want to leave the power until last. Okay, which means that I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, okay? That's going to cancel, all right? The reason why I subtract is because there's a plus 1 out the front, okay? Now I'm just going to draw an arrow up here so you can see where I'm going to be going with this. If I've cancelled out the 1 on the left-hand side, I'm left with just y squared is equal to 4 minus 1, which is 3, okay? Now, in order to get rid of a square root, okay, I've told you previously, whenever we've done Pythagoras theorem or whenever we've done financial mathematics, what we need to do is, whenever we cancel a square, right, we need to do the opposite, okay? And the opposite of squaring, okay, or raising to a power 2, okay, is to square root, okay? And what I do to one side, I do to both. Now, I want to add something here, okay? Something that you may not have seen previously, and I just really want to explain this here. And what I'm going to add is a plus or minus out the front of this square root, okay? So let me just cancel this off, and I'm going to show you why in just a moment I add this plus or minus out the front. Okay, so I have y equals plus or minus the square root of 3. The reason why I have this plus or minus the square root of 3, okay, now I've shown you this with parabolas, but I'm going to show you this again, okay? The reason why I have this plus or minus the square root of 3 is because when x equals to 1 on a circle, for example in this particular diagram, if 1 is less than our radius, okay, you'll notice that at x equals 1, okay, I actually have two values that pop up on my y-axis, okay? I have a positive y value up above, okay? And I have a negative y value that pops up, all right? So I actually have two values that are going to pop out of this equation from the 1x value. So heed my words, there must be a plus or minus in front of the root 3, okay? And what you can do is you can just chuck root 3 into your calculator, literally like that, okay? And if you chuck that into your calculator, we'll be able to round this correct to 1 decimal place. Your answer should be to 1 decimal place, y is equal to plus or minus 1.7 for 1 dp. Okay? Alright, let's have another go at doing this particular skill, possibly with a bit of an easier value. Okay? Alright, just remember, alright, I'm looking for two values within this circle. Okay? Okay, so question 4. Find x when y equals 0. Let's have a little bit of a play around with this, okay? So, in this particular case, in our last example, it said find y when x equals 1. This follows almost the exact same pattern, okay? And I just want to highlight how we're going to go about this. The first step, right, is I'm going to use my equation, and I'm going to say let y equal 0. Okay? So that means in this equation, wherever I see a y now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace it with a 0. So I end up with x squared plus 0 squared is equal to 4. Well, 0 squared, okay, that's nothing. So x plus nothing is still just going to leave me with whatever I had by itself over here, which gives me the equation x squared is equal to 4. So, okay, this is exactly the same thing as before, right? We're trying to find x, which means we're trying to get x by itself, okay? To do that, we need to get rid of the powers, okay? So, I'm going to square root the square, because we're doing the opposite, okay? So the opposite of squaring is square rooting. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. Now, remember when I square root, okay? You need to understand that I'm going to have two values. So heed my words, I want you to put a plus or minus, okay? The reason why we are doing this, if we think visually about a circle, and I'll bring back my diagram for this, right? We're talking about where y equals 0, okay, which is the x-axis. This is a horizontal line, y equals 0 going along here, all right? If I go to either side of my circle, okay, I actually have, all right, two values that occur, all right? So thinking about it in terms of this circle, remember when we square root in these types of equations, okay, when we're talking about circles, we have a plus or a minus, okay? So now what we can do, we can cancel the square and the square root, all right? Our answer comes up here to be x by itself is equal to plus or minus, and the square root of 4 is 2. That's our answer, okay? Now, those last two questions didn't really relate to actually sketching the circle much, but it did relate to helping us to find points around the outside of our circle. Now we got the opportunity to actually sketch this circle in question 5. Okay, so it says sketch x squared plus y squared is equal to 4. Okay, so if I just move this down a bit here, right, you'll remember that our center of the circle is 0, 0, and we have a radius of 2. Okay, so if my center of my circle is here at 0, 0, I always put a dot here at my 0, 0 for my center. It then tells me that my radius is 2. So that means I will come out from the center exactly 2, okay, away from my center. And I'm going to do that at each of my points. The reason why is because my radius, right, I'm going to do this on each axis, okay, and that is because my radius is the exact same all the way around in a circle. Now you'll notice that these two are positive. However, when I come here on my x-axis, okay, I'm on the opposite side, so it's going to be a -2 instead, because we're talking about our distance here, all right, and the same thing down here, all right. This one down here will also be a -2, because we're just talking about being a distance of 2 away, but it gives us a -2 on our Cartesian plane. Now all we do, okay, is we try and sketch a neat curve, all right. We're trying to represent a circle here, okay. Now this will take a little bit of practice, okay. You may want to do this in a pencil to begin with, all right, to try and sketch your circle out, all right. All right, so here is our circle. X squared plus y squared is equal to 4, all right. A circle center 0, 0 and radius 2. We use the first two questions that we went through to give us a rough sketch of what's going on. Okay, so let's practice a few more examples of just the sketching part, not necessarily the equations part. Okay, let's have a little bit of a look at it. Okay, so here's our next example, right? It says, for the following, we need to identify the center of the circle, identify the radius, and then we have to sketch it. So here's my first equation. We know that the circle because we have an x squared and we have a y squared. Okay, so we're going to identify the center of the circle. Well, we know if it's a circle that looks like an x squared plus a y squared equal to a number, okay, with nothing else going on, the center is going to be 0, 0, right at the origin. Now to identify the radius, okay, remember it's the square root of whatever number that we have by itself over here, okay? You must have everything by itself over here, okay? So our radius, r, okay, is equal to the square root of 16, okay? The square root of 16, well, that's equal to 4. So r is equal to 4. So that's the radius of our circle. It'll have a distance of 4 from the origin, okay? That's 0, 0. All right? So let's have a little bit of a practice with actually drawing this, okay? Which is part 3, sketching it. So if we're going to sketch this, we know that our radius is 4. We're going to put our center 0, 0 in here first, okay? And then that means from the center, our radius will be the same in all directions. So we will come out here to 4, up here to 4, across here another distance of 4, okay, which will give us -4, and the same thing down here as -4 down the bottom there, okay? Right, what I suggest you do, if you don't have graph paper, I suggest you get your ruler and you try and make equal size tick marks just to give yourself a bit of a guide for drawing, okay, all the way around, okay, and then it's sort of like connecting the dots, okay? So, in terms of sketching this, now we just neatly connect our tick marks that we make, okay? Trying to be as neat as possible. All right, and then make sure that we have a nice smooth line that's going right around the circle, okay? All right, I might just make that 4 a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on. So this is x squared plus y squared is equal to 16, okay? Really want to highlight that the radius here is 4, not 16. It's a really common mistake, okay? So square root whatever number you have over by itself, which is like what I showed you in the first example, okay? So let's do one more, okay? Okay, so here's our last circle equation for today. We know it's a circle, again, because we have an x squared and a y squared equal to a number, all right? So first things first, just like last time, we're going to identify the center, okay? Now the center of this circle is going to be the origin because it is just an x squared and a y squared by itself, okay? Nothing else is in there for it to change. All right, the next thing that we need to identify is the radius. Now remember the radius r is the square root of whatever number is over here, okay? This is not a circle of radius 5. Really want you to heed my words when I say this, okay? This is a circle of radius equal to the square root of 5, okay? So the square root of 5, all right? Now, to give us a bit of an idea of, you know, how far that might be in terms of the decimal, we just get on our calculator and we just go square root 5 and just press equals. So we know it's roughly around about 2.24, okay? So 2.24 if we're going to 2 decimal places. So 2.24 right, to 2dp. All right. However, in saying that, okay, I'm going to sketch this circle using my exact answer, right? This is my rounded answer. My exact answer includes the square root, so the square root doesn't disappear. All right. So if I'm going to sketch this, that means if my center is here at 0, 0, all right, so this is part 3, my center is here at 0, 0, I'm going to come out a distance away from it, root 5, okay, the square root of 5, which we know is approximately 2.24. Okay, so we come out here, square root of 5, which also means that we go up the square root of 5. And the same thing over here, all right, except it's now minus square root of 5 because we're on the negative side of the x-axis. And now down the bottom, it's the negative square root of 5 as well. Okay, and our last step after all of this, okay, is to connect all of our dots. Like I said, get a ruler, okay, and try to space everything out an equal distance away from your origin if you don't have graph paper. All right, okay, so let's try and connect our dots now. Okay, I really suggest doing this with a pencil if you have time. Okay, it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, but it should be neat. All right, so this is x squared plus y squared is equal to 5. All right, now it has a radius of root 5, okay, with a center of 0, 0. That's how we graph circles using sketching. Okay, next time I'll talk to you about how we can use a table of values to sketch your circles really, really, really accurately. Okay, thank you very much.